hh2 University training session today. My name is Jason Morrison. We're very excited to have you on board. First off, I just want to make sure that everybody can see my screen okay. If you cannot, just go ahead and just let me know in your message bar down below, and I'll be more than happy to try and accommodate any of you the best way that I can. Just wanted to give you an outline for today's training session. We're going to be covering the crew dashboard, some best practices on how to set that up and how to use that within your HR module. And then also I wanted to let you know that this being the first hh2 University training session, we are going to be trying to do this as an hh2 staff each month. We're going to strive to do it at the end of the month, the last Friday of each month. If we're unable to do that Friday, we'll try and give everybody enough heads up. But we are very excited to be able to give back to our clients and offer these free training sessions to all of you once a month. These are going to be largely based off of your feedback and input, so I welcome all of you at the very end of our training session to go in and take some time and give us some feedback on the training session, as well as give us your input and thoughts on some future training sessions that you would like to see, not only in HR, but any of our other modules. This meeting will also be followed up with Tina Anderson, who's over our support department. She'll be doing another meeting. She'll be covering some Excel tips and tricks for reporting, and so you'll want to make sure to stay tuned for that. And that's going to be at noon Mountain Standard Time, so you're more than welcome to join in on that next training session. So without any further delay, I want to jump right into the HR module. I am using demo data today, and we're going to go right up to the HR button up at the top, and we're going to get started. Now, the first thing that I want to point out about the crew dashboard is that it is a tool that is going to be used by all of your managers that we would set up with their own crew, where they can go in and view various items surrounding their employees or the employees that you assign to their crew. We have a crew dashboard and we have what we call a job site dashboard. They're two separate items, and they both do different things. There are pros and cons to both, and so I wanted to discuss some of those today. Also, I want you to think about this. If you are one of our remote payroll clients, don't think of a crew the same way that you would in your remote payroll system. It is something completely separate from remote payroll, and all we are doing here is we are giving your managers the ability to see documents, certifications, create raise requests or termination requests from the field, and we'll get into those dashboards and what they allow your managers to do here very shortly. So let's talk a minute about the difference between a crew dashboard versus a job site dashboard. A crew dashboard is something that involves a crew, a manager over a crew of people. If you've got a group of employees that always report to a crew leader or a crew manager or maybe a superintendent, but they always work together, and it doesn't matter which jobs they are assigned out in the field or what they work on, they're always reporting to the same crew manager, then the crew dashboard is really what you want to implement. Our job site dashboard is for some of our companies that have jobs that last for long periods of time, and they want to be able to assign a specific job to a person out in the field, and anyone else that's assigned as an employee to that job, they could manage various documents, evaluations, and see the certifications for their employees that are tied to a job that they manage. The job dashboard isn't used as heavily as our crew dashboard, simply because for a lot of companies out there, and especially our clients, employees could be bouncing around from job to job quite frequently. So the job site dashboard is more designed for companies that have jobs that last long periods of time, months if not years, and you want to see possibly a location report based on a specific job, who that manager is, and the employees that he's managing on that job, and give them a little bit of access that way. So deciding between the two, it really comes down to asking yourself as a company, does it warrant me going in and switching my employees around on a job site dashboard very often? Is it something that I would have to do all the time because of the length of my job, or is it a job that's going to last a long time and not something that I'm going to have to go in and have constant maintenance with going in and switching some of those employees around? So that's what you want to be looking at here. For most of you, I think the crew dashboard's the way to go, and so that's the first one that I'm going to share with you today. So the first thing that you'll want to do when you're setting up a crew dashboard is you want to make sure that you go into the crew link under setup in HR. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on crews, and you can see that we have one set up in here from a prior training session. I'm going to go ahead and set up a new one. Now, the way that you name your crews on your dashboard is entirely up to you. However, I think a best practice is always to get very descriptive and detailed in the way that you set these up. I like to use the crew manager's first and last name when I'm setting up the crew dashboard, simply because I know that by looking at that crew, I know exactly who the manager is. You can also set this up by division or department if you want. However, if you have more than one manager over a department or a division, then it really comes down to deciding, do you want to have your managers sharing the same access with each other to their crew in HR, or do you want to set them up completely separate? There are also pros and cons to doing that. If you have a department or a division, or let's say you have a crew called maintenance, and you've got more than one manager, the pro or the upside to having more than one manager is that you can spread the workflow out, and especially if you're doing evaluations, each manager can pick a set of employees that they want to evaluate, and it just spreads the workload out. The downside to this is that both managers over the crew can see each other's evaluations that they're doing on employees. They're basically sharing access to their crew dashboard. And so if there are privacy concerns or anything like that, then you'll want to probably pick the latter and just set them up separately with their own crew. Another thing when you're creating your crews that I've seen a lot of our clients do with HR is set up every manager in your company with their own crew dashboard, and then I will show you how you can also assign every employee in your company to every crew. And what that would allow you to do is have your managers see everybody, all of the employees in your company, and if your employees are bouncing around a lot between the different crews throughout the year, then a manager would be able to easily go in and just pull up that employee and create an evaluation or see their certifications when they're working with that employee during the year. Remember that by limiting a manager to only seeing his own crew, he would not be able to see the evaluations or the information that another crew leader or manager outside in a different crew has done for an employee. So permission-wise, crew leaders or crew managers are only going to be able to see their own evaluations that they create for their employee when they're working with them. So I'll show you a couple of different ways of setting these up today. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and create a crew name. So I'm just going to pick someone in here. I'm going to use Donald Black as my crew leader for this example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, and I like to do these in all cap. Let me delete this one here. I like to do these in all caps just because I think it stands out nicer on the crew dashboard. And I'm just going to do first name, last name. And you know what, I'm just going to do, I'm going to add crew on the very end. Now, if you want to put a description on your crews, or that's completely up to you. It's not a required field. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave this one blank here for now. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is come down and make sure that I move over Donald into the crew manager field here. Now, if you don't see an employee in this list, this is a user account. So if you don't see the person that you need to set up as your crew manager, it's because we have not set them up in HR with a user account yet. All of you that are attending the training session today should be familiar with how to set users up in hh2. But when I open this up for question and answer period at the end, if you would like me to show you how to do that, again, I could go ahead and do that from the HR dashboard. But that is a basic function in the hh2 system. So I'm just going to come in here, highlight Don Black, and I'm going to use a single arrow over button to move him over into the list. Now, you want to make sure that you use a single arrow button, because if you use anyone that's got experience using these pick lists, if you use a double arrow, it's going to move everyone over, and you'll just have to move them all back and start over. So just make sure that you use the single arrow. Okay, once I've done that, then I can go ahead and hit Create Entry, and now you'll see that I've got a new crew up at the top called Donald Black's Crew. So that is the first step when creating a crew, is to name the crew and then to assign a crew manager. Now, by doing that, it doesn't automatically give that person, Donald, or the user that you moved over into the crew, it doesn't give them immediate access to the crew dashboard. That's just one step in the chain of command and security within HR. There's another level of security that we need to go in and make sure that we do anytime that we're adding a manager to a crew, and that involves going into your security setup in HR. All of you that have gone through an HR implementation know that we take security very seriously, and when we come into HR, a global password is created when we do your implementation with you. And so what you'll want to do is make sure that you have that global password available. Come into your security group, and I'm going to turn my caps lock key off here, and you'll want to make sure that you put in the password. And I didn't think it was that one. Let me try this again. Oops. And you can see that after putting in my global password, I'm now in the security portion of HR. The reason we're going in here is because your crew managers, when you set them up, they also need to be set up as a manager in your security groups. Okay. Now, if you want to create a separate security group just for your crew dashboards, you can. However, it's not necessary. You can come into your security group, go to the Managers tab, and we just need to make sure that we move over the group managers. Now, I had previously set Donald up, so I moved him over as a manager already. If you forget to move your crew managers over in this area here under the Managers tab, they will not have access to the crew dashboard. Okay, so it's really important that you remember this step and that you go in and just move them over. The difference between an HR administrator and a crew dashboard manager is that an HR admin in this list here also has permissions on the employee record area. So you can see here as an admin, an HR admin, I've got permissions in this list to see everything on my employee record tab, whereas a crew manager has nothing. You will never want to go into your permissions and give a crew manager someone that's going to be using the crew dashboard, you just don't give them any permissions on the employee record. It's very unlikely that they would need to see anything on an employee record like you see it as an HR administrator. Okay, so just remember not to select any of these boxes here, and the only thing that we require to set up the crew dashboard in the security group is to move the user over as a manager. Okay, so we've taken care of step 2. So we've created the crew, we've moved Don over as a crew manager, and now we've come into the global security and HR and moved him over as a manager here. There's one last step that we need to do, and that's on the employee record tab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the top and click on HR and go into the employee record area. Now the employee record area is where we go in and we set up permissions for our employees. For some of you that have our remote payroll product, you know and understand that you can set up user accounts in employee link in remote payroll. If you've already got a user, if you already have a user account established for an employee, you can skip a part of this step, okay? And you can go in and use the user management area to set up roles as well. In here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to find Donald Black. So I'm going to click on Donald Black, and I know that he already has a user account set up. But where we set up user accounts in HR is under the user account tab, and it's under this info button. By default, when you first come into HR, this will always be highlighted. So you can come down to user account, and because we already have a user established for Donald, the box that we want to mark in here is HR user. It says supervisor and management access. It's really important to have this one marked and not administrator or HR admin. Okay, this option here is really one step in the process for giving someone access to this employee record information. And then, like I said previously, in most cases, you don't want your crew leaders out in the field seeing this type of stuff. So we're going to mark HR user supervisor management access. Okay, now if you do not see this area here, and you see down at the bottom it's asking for a username and an email address, it means that we do not have a user account set up for that person yet. And I'll see if I can pull someone up that may not have one. Looks like most of our employees that we've set up in the system have user accounts, but you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because it'll say username, and you can change that. By default, we use first initial, last name, and then it has you put in an email address and hit create. And the reason why we do that is with HR, anytime you're setting someone up with access in the system, you want to allow them to create their own password so that if their password is ever jeopardized, they don't have to wait for an hh2 admin or an HR admin on your side to go in and reset the password for them. They can always go to the home page and reset their password. And when you're dealing with secured data, pay stub information, things like that, you want to make sure that you always put in an email address so that they can reset it from the home page. So that's the very last step. So create the crew and assign the crew manager, go into the security options and move them over as a manager in your global security area, and then just make sure on their employee record they have HR user marked. Now, people may ask why we have so many steps in place here. We have 3, and all 3 of those are a security option that needs to be turned on. So it's very rare that someone could accidentally go in and just flip the switch on someone and give them access to something that they shouldn't see. So we take those extra measures anytime that we're dealing with your data. Okay, now that that's done, if I were to log in as Mr. Donald Black, I would see my crew. The employees that I see under my crew completely depends on whether or not I've assigned those employees in their employee record to a crew in my company. So what I'm going to do is show you now how to go through and apply a crew on the Locations tab to your employees. So that would be the next step. After you've created the crews and you've assigned managers and you've got everybody set up that you want as your crew managers, the last step is to go in and assign out your employees to each one of their respective crews. So I'm going to just come in here up at the top, and actually I'm going to go in to, let's go into Mark Crocker here, and I'm going to go in and assign Mark to Donald's crew as an employee. So the way that I do that is there's a Locations button in HR, and by clicking on that, we have no current assignments for this employee. So when I scroll down, it shows me that I can add a location, and it's showing me that I can make a new current assignment here, and I can put in a date that I want to assign that employee to this crew. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to put today's date in for now. This date can be any date that you want. You can either manually type it in or you can select from the calendar menu here. And the next step is to select whether this is going to be a crew or a job or a location. We're not going to cover locations. It's very rarely used, so we're not going to cover that today. So you're going to make your decision between crew and job. In this example, again, we're going to use crew, and now I can come in and select from the crews that I've set up in my setup area in HR. Okay, so we have just the one. I'm going to select Donald Black's crew. Now I have a supervisor field here, a supervisor 1 and a supervisor 2. We get a lot of questions about what these fields do and how they're used. They are not required, so you don't need to fill those out. But it is nice to be able to fill either one of those out there so that if you want to see this on a location report in HR, anyone that's run the location report, those supervisor names do show up. So that can be used. I'm not going to cover the location report today. We may do that in another training session, but they do show up there. And also these fields can be used to kind of tie an employee to maybe a different manager within the crew. So if you've got a crew manager, but maybe maybe you have like a little bit of a hierarchy there where maybe you have a foreman and like a general superintendent or just a superintendent, and you want to list someone else out on a report indicating that that's also their manager, you can put that in here. I'm going to leave these blank for now, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit Create Location Entry. So now this employee, Mark Crocker, has been assigned to this crew. Now we do support having employees be a part of multiple crews. Okay, so like I mentioned previously, if you've got managers that need to do evaluations on all of the employees, and you've got those employees bouncing around a lot between your managers throughout the year, you may want to go in and set up all of your managers with their own crew and then assign your employees to each one of them. Okay, and then that way those crew managers can go in at any time and create an evaluation or do a quick rating on that employee when they're working with them in the field. And that's the way that I would do it. So if you wanted to go in here and assign another crew, you can. I don't have any other crews available yet, but you would just rinse and repeat the process by coming in and just reassigning an additional crew on top of the one that we just did here. Now, something else that I want to point out while I'm here is that if you are going to unassign an employee from a crew, let's say you don't want this employee being a part of this crew leader here, Donald Black, we can do one of two things. We can either click the X button right here where it says archive this entry, or I can hit the unassigned from location. The reason why I always prefer that you come in and use the unassigned from location, if I do that here, it will show up as a past assignment on this tab. Okay, that is good for historical data. If you want to track where your employees have been in the various crews, make sure that you use unassigned from location. So 99% of the time, I would always use this. If you make a mistake and you don't want a person being a part of a crew because you accidentally assign them to the wrong one and you don't want it to show up as a past assignment, make sure that you come over to the right here and hit the archive this entry, and that's like doing a soft delete in the system so that they no longer show up there. Okay, so now that I've got this employee assigned, I'm going to go in and I'm going to just assign one more in here. Let's do John Doe. So I've got John Doe pulled up. Notice that by pulling up the employee at the top, I'm still on the Locations tab. So I just can scroll down here to the bottom, and I'm going to just select the current. Let's select the current day. I can go in and I can select the first of the month or any day prior, but I'm just going to select today. And I'm going to go in here and leave it on crew, select Donald Black's crew, and now that I've done that, I'm going to hit the Create Location Entry. Okay, so we have a couple employees now assigned to Donald Black's crew. Well, what does Donald Black benefit from this? What are the things that he sees on his crew dashboard? What can he do with this? Now that we've got it set up, let's take a moment to go in and log in as Donald Black and show you the features that we've now enabled for this manager out in the field. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log out up at the top, and I'm going to log in as D Black, and I'm going to put in his password. And now you can see I'm logged in as D Black up at the top. And when I log in, notice that I only have the crew dashboard available to me and some RSS feeds. Okay, the reason why I'm only seeing the crew dashboard here is because in our global security area of HR, I did not give Don Black any permissions on the employee record. And that's what you want to do with your managers out there. Again, very rare that they would see anything else other than the crew dashboard and possibly the My Records tab so that they can get their own pay stubs and things like that. So I'm going to click on the crew dashboard here. And the crew manager will always see their name. This is another best practice and reason why I like to name the crew after the manager so that they don't get confused in any way. They know that this is their crew and what they're doing within that crew is private to them, and what they see is private to them. So now what I can do is come over here to my employee list and select the drop-down, and notice that here are the two employees that we assigned to Don's crew. So I'm going to click Mark, and by clicking on that, you can see that all of these tabs open up under the crew dashboard. Now, for some of you, you may use every single one of these tabs. For others, you may not be using some of these or care to see some of the buttons showing up here. And there is a global option in your HR system to turn these buttons off, and I can show you where that's done before we wrap up the training session today. So if you're not using or don't want to share accruals, or maybe you don't want the raise request or termination request, if those are things that you're not going to use, I would highly recommend that you just turn them off so that it frees up some of the clutter on the dashboard. Let's start with the first one over here, documents. This document library is similar to the My Records document. Okay, on the crew dashboard, in order to make documents available, just remember that when you're setting up your document classes, that when you're given visibility and granting permission on that in the visibility area, that you assign a visibility to the crew and job site dashboards. If you forget to go in and add read access in the document class area when you're setting up those classes, they will not show up under your drop downs on the crew dashboard. So you have flexibility in the types of documents that you share either globally or employee specific on the crew dashboard. In here, we've left on all of our global documents that we shared out on the My Records tab with all the employees. We also made them available here to the managers in this example. The other thing that we can do is we can come over here and click on Employee Documents. And we don't have any set up here, but if we had an employee document related to Mark Crocker, again, the way that the crew manager would see this is only if you make that document class viewable with read access on the crew dashboard when you're setting up that document class. We will be doing some trainings on the document library and how to show you how to limit those documents either globally so that everybody sees them, or how to limit them to an employee, and share out the best practices with you about how you would want to display those on either the My Records tab or the crew dashboard. For many of you, you already know how to do this, but that's something that we could definitely review in a future training session. So this is very handy here. Basic employee information. For your manager, if you do have an employee photo uploaded on the employee record area, they're going to see the employee photo here. They're also going to see basic information on the employee. Notice that there isn't any real sensitive personal information being displayed here other than a hire date and a phone number. Okay. This gives your managers the flexibility of having some basic information on the employees, so if they don't show or they're late or something happens, they can pick up the phone and give them a call. That information's right at their fingertips here. We also have emergency contacts available. If you've gone in, or your employees have gone in and taken the time to fill out emergency contacts, then your managers out in the field will have access to this. I will just share with you that we have seen this used quite a bit out in the field, even within our own company, our own sister company. A few years back, we had someone pass away at our office, and having that emergency contact information readily available, the spouse of that person and their family was contacted immediately, and they were able to be on site. Tragic incident, but it was really good that we had this information available out into the field where the manager could quickly access this. So encourage your employees to go in and fill those out either on their My Records tab, or get them filled out as an HR admin so that you're on the employee record, so that your managers can see this stuff out in the field. The History tab in here, for many of you, the History tab will be invalid permissions or unavailable. This is some information that can be either turned on or left off. It's more ideal for our customers that are using remote payroll. This will pull in some history information in here. If you're not using that product of ours, you may want to just go ahead and turn that off. Accruals. We set up accruals in the accrual area of HR. This is another way that you can give your managers out in the field access to their remaining accrual time, vacation or sick time. If you have not set up your accruals yet, please be sure to contact us or ask more information on that so that we can help set that up for you so that your managers can see that information. And again, if it's something that you don't want them to have access to, we just take it off. Classification ratings, evaluations, and raise requests. So the evaluation, employee evaluation, this is set up based off of the employee's classification. So if you've taken the time to go out and create a skills matrix and have tied that to an employee classification, anytime a manager comes in and selects an employee, it will automatically recognize the classification for that employee, and it will allow you to rate or do an evaluation. Now, it's saying that we can't rate this employee because we don't have one set up, so I'll just take a minor detour here real quick, and I'll go and assign them each a classification so that you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to come in here and just quickly go into the employee record for Crocker. Notice I just type in the name there, and let's just assign a classification. We'll just say that this person's a, let's do electrician. Okay, and for our other guy, J. Doe, I'm going to go in and assign him as a laborer. Okay, so now if I log out and we log back in as D. Black, our crew manager, you'll notice now when I go up into the crew dashboard that if I click on either one of these employees, if I go to the ratings tab, now I see their employee classification and I can give them a quick rating of 1 to 5. Now, on this area, just a tip and a trick, a lot of companies, when they first get going with HR, or even after you've been on HR for a while, you may not have set up a skills matrix to do formal evaluations on your employees. And that's okay. I would strive to get that up and running, but one thing that you can do as a workaround for now is use quick ratings. Quick ratings are just that. They're quick and easy to do. Your guys out in the field can rate your employees. The managers can rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. The mark or measure that you put on each one of these points in here is up to you. I always have kind of just said, you know, a 2 is a body in your company. It's someone that you're just, you know, you need a body on a job. It's, you know, you're just filling a gap. When layoff time comes, that's probably a guy that you're going to quickly lay off. All right. A 3 is probably average. A 4 is really good. Those are your best employees in your company. And a 5 is probably a made man, someone that's been with you for years, someone that's unless they do something to really screw up, they're probably going to be a lifer with your company and not someone that you're going to ever worry about. So you can come in here and evaluate the person and go in and give a comment. And these comments, let's actually make them a 4 here. Okay. So now that I've done that, you can see that the green box saved this, and I've given this person a quick rating. Also, when I come to the evaluation tab, you don't see any of the skills listed out for this electrician. That's because we haven't set up a skills matrix for electricians yet. But if you take the time to go through and do that, they would be able to, your managers would be able to go through and do a 1 to 5 rating on all of the different skills, and then put in some comments in here that get submitted to you on the employee record as an HR admin in the office. So I will go back and I'll show you that before we close as well, how this quick rating shows up on the employee record. And this is an area that you want to encourage your managers to use. It's a strong feature on the crew dashboard, quick ratings and evaluations. Raise requests is an area that your managers can use to let you know about a possible raise that an employee needs. And some of you may be laughing or scoffing at that notion or idea right now, but what we found is that there is a lot that goes into the hiring process, and even terminating an employee costs time and money. And one thing that you are able to do is track these raise requests. If a laborer or a person has a concern with what they're getting paid, and maybe they go to one of these managers out in the field, they can go to them and let them know. The manager can at least say, "Hey, I'll do what I can for you. I'll go to the, you know, my manager or an HR admin and let them know," and they can come in here and put in what the current pay rate is, what they would like to see that employee getting paid, and put in some comments. And maybe this comment is something to the effect, like, let's say this guy is getting $18 an hour and he wants like a $2 raise or something. And the comment could be, spoke with employee, would be nice to bump up hourly rate, great worker, if possible. Okay, now I can submit this request, and the raise request was submitted, and it comes in on the HR dashboard under the employee record. A report, an enterprise report, can be run on that, and you'll also see that on the employee record. Now, it doesn't mean that you're always going to give a raise out to your employees, but it's nice to be able to track it so that you have it available and on hand when you are giving raises out, so you can see what was proposed and then base your review off of those notes or comments that have come in from the field. The other thing that we've had a lot of experience with is termination requests. And for many of you, you know that certain people work well with managers out in the field. We've seen within our own experiences internally that certain people are great employees when they're working with certain managers. But if you take that employee and you move them across town with a different manager, that manager may want to fire him the very next day. And so there's a lot of money that goes into laying people off, as I mentioned, and going through the rehiring process. So what you can do is you can keep track of these termination requests, whether they're legitimate or whether it's something that may be just a personality conflict. They can come in here, put in what the current pay rate was for the employee, whether or not they would rehire them, and any comments. And these comments, when they come into you on your employee record area in HR, they can be reviewed. And maybe you realize, well, this guy has been such a great employee over across town with this guy. I mean, they love him. Now, instead of letting him go, maybe you do the review on this and say, we're not gonna terminate him. We're just gonna move him over onto another crew. And we have a history of this now to know that we don't want to put this employee with this manager out in the field because stuff may not work right for both the manager and the employee. And now you've avoided a termination altogether, and this person ends up being one of your best employees in your company because he gets along with his manager. Okay, so that's the termination request. And then the last one is certification. Now you see that I don't have anything here. Once again, I'll go in, I'll log out, I'll log in as an administrator, and I will assign a certification in front of you just to show you that certifications show up for those employees. So if we come in here to the employee record, and let's just quickly go in for Crocker and assign a certification. So I'm going to come in here under the certifications, and I'm going to say he's got CDL. We'll make it effective here. I won't put an expiration. Well, let's put in an expiration. Let's just do 2014. Okay, and then I can put in any notes. If I have an attachment or an actual certificate, I could upload this here and have it on file, but I'm just going to go ahead and create entry. I'm also going to go in and assign one more. Let's go ahead and give them first aid. And we'll say that one doesn't expire, and let's do one more. We'll just say that he's got this ladder safety. He's attended a recent ladder safety training session, and we'll say that we want that to expire in like 90 days. We'll just say like the end of September or something. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and I'll just add a couple of certifications for Doe, John Doe in here. And it looks like he's got one. We'll create one more. Put the effective date today, and I'll just create entry. So now if I log back in as the crew manager, Donald is going to have access to those certifications for his employees, which is really important. There's a lot of downtime that takes place when a manager has to call into the office for any reason and get information like this when it can be readily available via iPad, iPhone, or just logging into a website. So I'm going to pull up Mark, and now when we go to the certification, you can see that here are the certifications that we just assigned out. Your manager has access to it. They don't need to question it now. They know exactly if it's effective or if it's expired. And if we come in here to John, you can see the ones that I just added there. and it looks like we've even got the attachment here. So if I were to click on this one, it would ask me if I want to open this up or save it, and you can see here's the logo that I uploaded. So you know, if you want to tie attachments to these so that your guys don't have to get copies of them out in the field, then go ahead and set those up on the employee record under the certifications area and expose that out to your managers. That is the crew dashboard, and I think, like I said, for most of you, this is going to be the way to go. If you are interested in the job site dashboard, there's no difference other than instead of actually assigning a crew, we come in and we assign a job. So it's a little bit easier to set up. Whoops, let me log in as an admin here. Oops. So when we come into the HR, the main difference between the crew and the job site, like I previously mentioned, is that for Donald Black, if I'm setting them up on a crew dashboard, instead of creating a crew, you wouldn't create a crew. You would just come in, and what you would do is you would go to the location tab. You would want to come in here and assign, instead of crew, you would want to assign by job, and then you would want to come in and select the job. So you would come in and select the job there and create the location entry. That's the same thing that you would do for all of your employees. There's one extra step in here, and that is in order for you to make Don a manager over this job, you would do that in the user management area. So for some of you that have used our old remote payroll product, it's all done on the user management screen. And so what we would do is we would come into the user management, and I would actually find Don in here, and I would come in and I would assign him to a level in here as a project. So I would come in and assign the job here, and it would assign him to that job as a supervisor. So I can't remember which job I selected, but I would come in here and I would go in and I would select HR user. Okay, I'd also go in and select job site 1. Okay, and so once that's done, the user would then be able to see all of the employees that have been assigned to that job. Again, I think for most of you, I think the crew dashboard is the way to go. I recommend it over the job site just because you can have as many crews as you want, and I think every manager, regardless of whether or not they're a superintendent or a foreman or how many jobs they work on in the year, I still think the crew is the way to go because there's less work involved there. And I'm a big believer in as little maintenance that we can have you do in the system. That's a good thing. You know, you're not having to go in and constantly reset something up or reassign someone to a different crew is the way that I like to do things. And so I would definitely prefer the crew dashboard over the job site dashboard all day long. Now, if there is, if any of you have a specific need where you want to use a job site dashboard and you want to get really detailed into that area, please contact me and I'll set up a time where I can set you up on a job and have you give that a try and see if you like that. And if you don't, then you may want to just switch it over to the crew. Okay. What I'm going to do is we've got about 10 minutes left, 15 minutes left before our next training session with Tina. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to a question and answer. I've had all of you on mute, but I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you want. Feel free if you want to ask your questions out loud or if you want to go in and answer them. Actually, I'll keep you muted. If you just want to raise your hand or just tell me in your chat menu that you have a question, I'll go ahead and I can unmute if you want to take a moment to talk. So feel free to ask me any questions now. I'll leave it up to you guys. Okay, no questions? None? All right, well, if anything comes up afterwards, or if you think of something after our training session today, feel free to let us know. We went ahead and recorded the training session for you. We'll have a page where all of our videos will get uploaded so you can go back and review the things that we covered today. I want to let all of you know that I appreciate your time. More importantly, we appreciate your business. We're excited to offer this training session to everybody. We think it's going to be a great way to offer an additional service to you. It's a way for us to possibly help cut down on some of the support questions that you may have. While we do value our support department and want to provide you with excellent customer service, we feel like this is the next step to do that for you guys. So again, thanks for your time today. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and don't hesitate to give us your feedback on some of the other training sessions that you'd like to see through the hh2 Web University. Thanks.